certainly hope so. And yeah, this should be pretty fun. It's a very common spot, so that means blundering quite a bit. Again, it's a quick reminder, low jack range is roughly 25%. Should be fairly basic. Defending range is roughly 59%. It is important that we do 3-bet 9%, and quite a few people do miss the lighter 3-bets of this. But yeah, it's just is what it is. Poker's hard, so suck less sounds good. Very good. Yeah. How's the BB series going? I'm still really bad, but we're getting better. Yeah, thanks for everything. Yeah, so again, like defend the big blind, like 60% range, keep that in mind. And again, preflop ranges, if you need them, preflop.dto.poker. Available, everything you need. Shouldn't waste too much time on that right now, just to have a rough idea. We are gonna hop into the aggregate reports, and we are gonna have a little bit of fun and figure out. First question is there any leading on this board? Or in this spot, I should say. Right. So we talked about preflop for 2 minutes. Now we're gonna talk about global tendencies for a little bit before I get into the play and explain. So as for global tendencies, we're now looking at leading frequencies from the big blind. And as you can see, and as you would probably expect if you were watching my other sessions, there was always some leading. Now, there's a lot of leading because we were short stacked in relation to the pot, which means we're going to be leading not just more often, but we're going to be leading all in more often, and we're going to be stacking off more often. So there were quite a bit of shoves involved, which at 40 big blinds is not the case. Here we're going to be leading, if we do lead, we're going to be leading small, at least that's what we allowed in our sim. And so the question is, which boards does this even matter on? And does this even matter? It does matter on some boards, but on the vast majority it does not, as you can see here. If I look at this right now, it should be like 10 boards on our subset where there's a significant leading frequency. So yeah, and you can look at all these equities for all these boards here and quickly figure out the strategy. And the board that is best for the out of position player is sort by OOP equity, and the board is 765. And what is reflected in the 765 is that there is significant donk betting even this short. It's worth noting that there's only a 2% global leading frequency across this board, so it's very infrequent. But the boards probably all have a 7 on them, a 6, a 5, a 3. So again, I don't know, fairly straightforward, as it should be. So we are now gonna look at the in-position reports and see if there's any surprises. Again, keep that in mind that you want to lead on boards that contain middling cards here or very low cards, and we lead always small, and we'll go from there. So now we're switching over to the in-position reports. Oh no, don't you worry about it. I'm prepared. Open reports, position. Very good. No, I didn't like it the way I opened it. Okay, so on to the next reports. We've covered leading. Now we're gonna cover in position broad global strategies. And again, what I would like to look at is, the first thing is we're looking at a total bet frequency of 88%. That's pretty aggressive. Well, again, we can perhaps look at the boards that we always bet. Start easy, right? So we're gonna filter by total bet frequency, and yeah. The first thing before you go into bet sizings is you focus on you focus on overall betting frequencies. It makes your task a little bit more easy. And don't worry about the sizing, just worry about the fact that you bet. That's a start. So we do this. We see that we're basically betting like every board quite aggressively. So this is not a way to do it, and we should be switching this around and looking at boards we bet the least often. And you can see there is a clear correlation here to the boards that the out of position player leads himself. Well, again, the reason for that is that equities run pretty close, so there's going to be a bit of leading and there's going to be a lot of action. That's good. One thing that you gotta note here is that all these betting frequencies assume the out of position player has a leading range. If the out of position player does not have a leading range, these frequencies would indeed drop quite a bit more. Alright, so on a 7-6-5, if the out of position player is range checking, you would probably just be betting like sub 30% or something. Right? So that's very important, and it's something a lot of people don't realize, but it has leading or not leading has effects on overall strategies and stuff. You can basically think of it as it being a completely different equilibrium strategy, right? It's like you sort of, if all of these are toy games, and if you change one rule of the toy game, the optimal solution changes. Right? I hope that it's easily explained. Yeah, that's for that. Just like these are the boards we will be checking, and this is what we're keeping in mind. That is an incredible point. Yeah, so someone in the chat made a point here saying that if there is no donk betting on ace 5-5 with deep stacks, UTG barely c bets, and that's you took a good example of a board there as well. Ace 5-5, yeah, the low paired. Hope you're good, and I got something very exciting to show you very soon. I promise. I'll hit you up when it's ready. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to quickly look at boards that get the big bet treatment, because this is something I personally think I'm very good at. I can always get better, and the reason I said this is because my favorite boards to big bet are the 3 Broadways, especially with an ace, they do really well, and the solver clearly seems to approve, which is nice. See, you can see all of these stand out here: 3 Broadway, 3 Broadway. There's also another category of boards that I personally always big bet, and let's see if the proofs of this. Yeah. Ace King 2 has 62% c-bet. We'll get to that OVTN in a minute. Sorry, not OVTN. I think you might have misread, but we'll use our super awesome flop filters in a minute. High card ace. We're gonna talk about overbetting in a minute, but there's so like there's ace 10-3 here, which has a total bet frequency of 90%. There's ace 10-4, which is like 90%. Where was the ace king deuce, son? I believe you might have misread, but I'm happy to double check this for you. Ace king 4 has a betting frequency of 69%. 31% check. And it's all big bet. Right. Oh, I assume. Well, this is interesting. Yeah. Well, there's some outliers here, right? And well, the reason for this is usually because the king can check back a bit more often. So you can see here, ace queen 3, you're already betting substantially more, and ace jack 6, again, we're betting everything. Yeah, that's actually a really good catch. Well done. Well done. So that's a good catch, yeah. I would probably throw out a guess and say that it's not super important, because well, ace queen 3 and you know, all of those behave fairly similarly. So, you know, just keep that in mind. Poker is hard. If I've taught you nothing, I teach you that poker is hard. And that about sums up the reports. Yeah. As button, well, we'll get to that, Ike. Yeah, maybe. I also personally don't find the bet sizing in these spots super important. And you guys might looks a bit small. We'll zoom in a bit. Make sure this looks good for you guys. That's too big. Aha. Right on. So we'll play one BB hand. Perfect. Okay, we can quickly discuss overbetting at 40 big blinds since it came up. We did not allow it in our sim settings. That doesn't mean it's good. That necessarily doesn't mean it's bad. All it means is that we decided that it would not add a significant EV to our strategy. We just need a sufficiently big bet. So once you get to like 50, 60 big blinds, the smart way to do this is to scale up your large bets and have them closer to some sort of geometric sizing, 2E or something. And even then, what's far more important is that you have significant turn options, like turn overbets and stuff. So again, if you take an ace-king deuce board, for example, and you allow check, be small, be big, and be really big, all the solver will do is give you a strategy that splits into all of these options, which you have no shot at replicating. So it's generally better to either do one size on the flop, preferably, or at the very most two in tournaments. That's what we believe. So the little EV gain by overbetting is really just not worth all the hassle. And now we're going to talk about big blind defense. Ace King Deuce, which is funny because this is the board we just discussed. We face a 69% large c-bet. And as Sungird so helpfully pointed out that this is not a range bet, it's still, however, a very aggressive bet. And we will treat it as such and, of course, defend. There is no leading in my strategy on an ace. There is, however, a lot of calling. You can see here that this is one of our brand new spots. Or more new spots. I think the sizings are extremely clean and simple. And you can see like a geometric 3-size bet is usually what's proven to be good strategy. Again, you can see here that in position, big bets only on this board, which yeah, so as we discussed, right, big bet only, will defend very aggressively. Right, somewhat aggressively, right? I love the 3% check raise strategy. But it is what it is, right? Like, always rigged. Everything's rigged. Why do you think it took me so long to set up the stream? Yeah, again, we face another big bet. This definitely does feel a bit rigged, you know, doesn't it? Face that big bet, and frankly, again, you know, like the big Broadway boards are the ones that get the heavy bet treatment. This is indeed almost a range c-bet, and we need to fold our terrible gut shot. One thing I like to do here is find continuing thresholds, and this to me is very interesting. Right, I find it interesting that King 4 with a spade somehow comes in here with a defend. Again, you know, King 5 with a spade is a somewhat interesting defend. King 8 diamonds, King 7 diamonds, King 5 diamonds, King 4 diamonds. it's all about the backdoor nut flush. You're just kind of continuing sometimes. It's pretty cool. One thing really interesting here that people miss, I want to point out, is that even against a range c-bet, we do fold queen 9 and queen x gets folded, and even these bottom aces are fairly thin EV-wise, so you're just really in a nightmare spot. So yeah. Yeah, it's pretty tragic, but you do somehow continue with the king 4. How do I think the checkback frequencies changes as we go deeper versus the big blind? I don't think it changes too much, to be completely honest. I think it's like 40 blinds, you're sufficiently deep. So, I rolled this. Personally, I do want to check instead, though, but it is fairly close. And this is also fairly close, so we're not gonna... Pot size bet is pretty fucking hard. Against a pot bet here, I assume I'll just call this. Looks pretty good. Again, I decided that the 8 of hearts just blocks nothing. And I think this seems reasonable as well. Again, here. Yeah. Again, on the flop, there's nothing too interesting here. On the river, it's pretty interesting that I have like a exactly break-even catcher. It's really just a hand that's not worth much, is it? So I decided based on my side card, based on the 8 that I would call this, and I was thinking I'd fold the 8 of spades, which blocks flush draws, and for the 8 of diamonds. So yeah, again, you're gonna get into tons of marginal spots into this spot, and I'm happy I decided correctly. This is just a call here, although I'm kind of interested to see that we just face a smaller bet here. Nothing to see here. If we face a river shove here, this is actually extremely interesting. It is worth noting that I get to look at what I find interesting first. Nice. It is worth noting that on the turn we're supposed to fold our hand basically, and I kind of found that 11% call where I didn't randomize. So it is problematic, and it is a spot certainly where OBTN, that is right, yeah. You just if I put this on absolute, you will see why this makes sense, right? You just put back in relative, and you have some absolute garbage very infrequently, and you just... If I were to stick this into an equity calculator, the in-position range is just dominating. The bluffs are so infrequent. I get the check back on the ace high monotone board. I know it does happen quite a bit. I just wanted to point that out in case someone missed it. Just a call. We're getting put into some real miserable spots, but it's just a pure call. Inaccuracy territory fold on the river, which, if I was some other streamer, I would say that this is a good exploit, but I'm frankly being put in a difficult spot by the bot, and it's not pretty. I in-game decided that my cutoff for calling down would be the jack of spades and not the 10 of spades. This might have been a bit too tight here. You just get a call, all of them. Wow. Well, I assume I overfold. 6 of spades. Every spade. Does he have a check back flush? I don't think he has a check back flush very often. I think he just... It's like such an infrequent note, right? And if you go down infrequent notes, you will make mistakes, right? Like the bot won't make a mistake because the bot knows the answer. But yeah, I thought I was very heavy on like flushes that have this terrible shape. It's a really difficult spot. I actually want to look at their range completely by the river. And I'm gonna have to look at it. Absolute form. Queens, kings, yeah, those are full frequency, yeah. I'm surprised king, queen gives up. King, jack. Find some bluffs, king 10. Queen 10. Jack 10. Does Jack 10 play like this quite often? 10-9. 10-9 plays like this quite often. Well, all the low pocket pairs do bluff, so... yeah. It's hard. I really try not to go down a rabbit hole with these hands because we would be way better off just focusing on defending thresholds and stuff. I'll just fold this. And this one's like one of the ones that is fairly tempting to check raise. And the reason I decided not to is because it was Jack 9-6. If this was Jack 9-5, I would have found the check raise at some frequency for sure. So, yeah. Again, the in-position player bets this pot very aggressively. I'd assume basically range. Splitting between two sizings. Nice. Yeah. So again, just keep in mind the threshold here. Here's one we will not fold, and it's also very similar to the one that was just discussed in chat. Only that the king for 4 is played at a lower stack depth. So we'll just play our hand passively and check. And again, we face the 4-spade runout. Got a high RNG. I'm just gonna fold this. And the solver, the sim, says I do just fine. Interesting that we talked about the low paired boards. There is a sliver of leading, which is not worth looking at. DTO checking back, that's where it gets interesting. DTO checking back 50% of their range. If you are deeper on a board like this, you would naturally check a lot more. And yeah, keep that in mind. That's important, right? At a short stack, you can still bet the 4-4 export quite aggressively. At a deep stack, you are not able to do that because the big blind having force is so bad for you. So again, just stack size differences. Snap fold here. It's gonna see with the board very aggressively. This is fairly interesting because the shorter you are, the more of a check raise it is. Personally, now I just rolled a 25. So if I roll a 25, I'm calling, but I'll still check raise very aggressively. Again, here's gonna be some sort of check raise, some sort of calling. Nope, just call. Okay. Check, all in, easy river call. I wonder if, okay, there's quite a bit of leading on the turn and the river, which very interesting river lead here, certainly. Difficult to execute in game. It does make sense though, since the 6th is favored in position player. You do check raise this flop still very aggressively, of course, yeah. And I would have check raised a7 pure, and I just decided to call the concept. Now, well, this hand specifically kind of wants to call, because if you do call the queen 7, if you call the queen 7, you can 2-pair and cooler your opponent quite nicely. While if you do check raise, I can show you really quickly what happens if you do check raise. If you do check raise, it's gonna go like this. Gotta learn how to play the check raising note as well. It's not easy. Another block bet. This is fire. Again, you gotta learn how to do this, right? And if you check raise, he's gonna fold out the queen jack, queen 10 and stuff. Well, yeah. It's like, I'm not surprised at this defense. We can again talk about thresholds here because I find this fascinating, right? So the king 5 defends, the king 6 does not defend, right? The queen 8 defends, the king queen off does not defend, right? Again, thresholds are the most important here. And yeah, so we're gonna do like 5 more minutes of play, quick fire. Ace 5 deuce, we're facing a small bet. I'm gonna RNG between check call and check forward. I'm gonna RNG here as well. I'm gonna lean towards the and check fold. It's really easy to get carried away here, so really easy. It's just too greedy to take this hand and blast it. I am not supposed to do that. Again, though, I roll the flop, which I find easy to do on the ace wheel boards. It's natural to check raise, isn't it? It's like one of the ones that you learn right away and just play accordingly. Again, this is one where we're gonna roll between call and forward. It is important to RNG these. Turn's extremely favorable for us, but we get a very low roll, so I'm just gonna check it. I was rolling between small bet and call. Small bet and check, sorry. Here I'm rolling between call and check raise again, so check raising again. This hand looks like a joke. Again, we're just hitting like the overall perfect hand for everything. I personally think this is apparently it's a pure shove on the river. Sango, that's what the reports are for. No one can remember. So if you ever can't remember this, the reports are always accessible. I cannot remember it either. And that's a wow. I thought the king was actually quite bad for us, given that the in-position player does have king x of spades very often. Yeah, it's a pretty cool line, isn't it? But even if it's low frequency, then I really thought they have the king x of spades very often, so... That's one of the good last hands for sure. Right. 5-4-3, as we established, it's a sum leading board. I'll just go with a fairly big bet here, and I think this is reasonable as well. Not much to see here. Some overbetting as well, which makes sense. Some big betting. Thanks for the session. Yeah, you guys are welcome. Check raise, check raise. Yeah, I don't know. I actually think people love betting in position. People love betting whenever they have the turn to bet. So, I know. Once people check. What's the alternative line here? Mainly lead turn. Interesting. Let me try that. Call. That's a funny hand. I'm surprised how much leading there is on the turn. Very interesting. I was gonna look at like the turn gets raised very aggressively, right? Interesting hand. Again, there's not too much checking back here. 40% and then the turn. Little range lead river. Fairly interesting. Okay, this is embarrassing. Yeah, so that's this spot for today, and we're gonna switch this over to do button big blind in a minute after this hand, and ICM spots. I can do that some other session. I'm currently extremely focused on doing the big blind defense series for us.